So you just bought your first DJI drone. Now you go on your remote and you go online and you check all the 250-gram drone. In fact, most of the parameters, functions.
So I use normal mode to get a sense of motion in my video clips. Jump right in. So what are advanced gimbal settings and why should you adjust them? So the advanced gimbal settings in the DJI Fly app allow you to change how the drone reacts movement-wise and gimbal-wise to an input on the joysticks or gimbal wheel on the controller. For example, if you have some of the settings high, then the drone will rotate fast whenever you move the joystick, or you can lower them values so that the drone actually rotates slower for the same input on that joystick. And the same goes for the gimbal. You can change for any input on the scroll wheel how quickly that gimbal moves up and down. The other thing you can do is change something called smoothness. Now, if the smoothness has a low value, the gimbal or the drone will come to a dead stop. But if the smoothness has a high value, the drone will actually buffer the movement out or the gimbal movement out. So when you let go of the stick, it will actually keep going for a few seconds and slow down itself to give you a much smoother movement. Now, the reason I think you should change these is because the drone comes loaded with values which are generically the best for everybody. Some people like to control the smoothness of the drone by making really subtle movements on the sticks, and they also have really high sensitivity levels in their fingers and can make them small, nuanced movements and can smooth the motion out themselves. Same with the scroll wheel. But you also find some people, and I'm included in this bracket, who find it much harder to hold their fingers in them nuanced movements for a long time. I actually find, especially with my left thumb, that holding the stick in certain motions, I actually start to get like a twitch in my thumb, and I find it really hard to keep the stick in certain positions. So you can actually numb the values down if you're that kind of person, so that you can make harsher movements on the stick. The drone will still move. Hey everyone. If you struggle with flying smoothly when doing drone moves, such as an orbit to get cinematic footage, then there is an important setting that you might not know about, or you've looked at it and come across it but don't really understand how it works, but it can make a massive difference to how easy it is to fly your drone smoothly. Today, I would like to show you how to get to this setting, explain how it works, and show you how I personally set it up to get super smooth footage more easily. Let's jump right in. Now, if you're new around here, welcome to the Drone Creative, the channel that helps you learn more about flying drones, from the basics to the most advanced techniques to help you get more cinematic videos and better images from your drone. So if you would like to see more of that, then please consider subscribing. And when you're down there, make sure to check that notification bell so that you will be alerted when my new videos are released. It would be greatly appreciated. Okay, so let's take look at this setting, which is going to help you fly more smoothly. And the setting is called the expo curve. So let's first take a look at how we access this setting. So you want to tap the settings menu icon, which is the three dots on the top right of the controller screen. You want to go across to the control tab, and then if you scroll down, you will see an option called gain and expo tuning. Now in here you can do a range of things. For example, you can set the max speed. So you can set how quickly your drone will fly horizontally or ascend or descend when you push the joystick as far as it will go. You can also control things like how fast the drone will rotate in the air, how quickly the drone will brake or come to a stop when you let off the joystick, and you can control how fast the gimbal will move upwards or downwards. But if we scroll down, you will see the setting we are talking about today, which is the expo curve, and it's under the expo heading. Now you may have seen this setting before when you were in this menu, but maybe the graph just looked too intimidating, it put you off changing any of the settings, or maybe you just don't understand what this option does and so you've left it alone. This setting is actually a really good setting to adjust
If you're like me and struggle to get smooth drone footage, maybe you struggle making small little adjustments on the joysticks of the controller, and this results in you getting twitchy footage when you're doing things like an orbit. Maybe you find the drone just flies too fast for you to be able to keep your subject centered. You find you either have lots of footage where your subject drifts off center and no longer stays in the center of the frame, or again, you get twitchy footage as you're continually making adjustments to keep that subject centered. And the reason why the expo curve or the expo settings can really help with this is because you can make the joysticks less sensitive when you've only moved them a small amount off center. And this is where you spend most of the time holding the joysticks when doing drone moves such as an orbit. There's very few drone moves which require you to make large enough inputs or fly fast enough where you have the joysticks held all the way as far as they can go the entire time. Most of the time when we're doing drone moves, you're making really small, subtle inputs on the joysticks themselves. And so if you find holding your fingers in that position quite hard to do, or you're getting twitchy footage, you can actually dial out some of the sensitivity when you're holding the joysticks in them positions, and this is going to result in you getting smoother and less jerky or twitchy drone footage. Now, when you first take a look at the expo settings, when you see the graph, you see these different options, it can look quite intimidating. It can be quite hard to understand exactly what this setting does. So what I'm going to do now is explain to you how this setting works, so that then you can go out, have a play about with these options, and fine tune it to your own personal preference. I will be going over the settings I personally use towards the end of this video, but it helps to understand how these settings work so that you can fine tune them to your own flying style. Now, simply put, the expo settings allow you to adjust how the drone reacts speed-wise as you move the joystick further and further away from its center point. And you can do this for the up and down motion, the yawing motion, which is the rotating motion of the drone, and the pitch and roll. And the best way to understand this is to see a demonstration. So let's take a look at the pitch and roll motion. If I adjust this value all the way down, you will see the green line on the graph to the left has just moved. And the green line corresponds to the pitch and roll, because you can see the little green icon next to the pitch and roll. And you can see this has flattened out the initial part of that curve. And so what this graph is now showing you, because we have flattened the initial part of that curve, is that as I initially start to move the joystick away from the center point, the drone's not actually going to move at all because that curve is flat. As I move the joystick further and further away from the center point towards the edge, the movement is going to get faster quite quickly as that graph ramps up. Now, if I go back to the expo settings and I adjust that pitch and roll expo setting all the way to its maximum value, you can see the graph is now completely changed. Instead of flattening the curve, we have now made the initial part of the curve pretty much vertical, and then it curves off very quickly towards the top. And this is going to result in your drone going to its maximum speed pretty much as soon as you move that joystick away from the center point. You can see the second I push that joystick off its center point, we are now pretty much at maximum speed straight away. And lastly, if we go back into the expo settings and we set the pitch and roll value to be 0.5, you can see that green line is a perfectly straight 45-degree angle. And what that now means is the joystick response is going to be linear. So instead of having a slow movement initially, getting much faster, or a really fast movement straight away, the speed of the drone is going to match up perfectly to how far you push that joystick away from the center point. So as you push the joystick further and further away from that center point, the drone is going to get faster and faster in a very linear way. And so as you can see, if, as mentioned earlier, you struggle with doing drone moves such as an orbit, when you're only holding the joysticks a small amount off the center point, by lowering these expo values, you can actually reduce how sensitive that initial area around the joystick is as you only move it a small amount off center. This will dial out that twitchiness, that jerkiness in your footage as you're doing that drone move. Now, because everybody's different and everybody likes a different responsiveness from their drone, some people like a very fast, responsive drone, and they can control the drone smoothly themselves. They don't need the drone to dial out any twitchiness or jerkiness. Or some people are like me and actually find they are quite twitchy and jerky on the joysticks and like the drone to dial out some of that movement so you can get nice, smooth shots. I recommend going out and playing about with these settings yourself and find ones that work best for you. But I'm going to give you the settings I personally use. You can use these as a good starting settings. So if I scroll down, what I like to do is reduce all of these to 0.15 or 0.15. And I find that just makes it so much easier to hold them joysticks ever so slightly off center, as it reduces some of that responsiveness when you're only making smaller inputs. And the same goes for normal mode. So if I switch over to normal mode now and scroll down, I also set these echo settings to 0.15. And I think those settings are a really good starting point. These are the settings I use all the time when I'm out flying, but they're a good starting point for you to head out and play about with these settings to find the ones that work best for you. So there you have it. Hopefully now you understand how to access the expo curve on your DJI Mini 3 Pro and how to adjust it to help you fly more smoothly and get more cinematic videos with your drone. Now, before you go, if you like this video and you learned something, please let me know by giving me the thumbs up and click that like button down below. And if you love all things drones and want to know how to get more, what settings should you use for the best result will work great for you as well. In this video, I'm going to go through each of the DJI Fly App settings menus, what I've set the settings to, and why I haven't used some of the features, some of the ones I think you definitely should have turned on, and we'll take a look at things like the advanced gimbal settings, which will help you get the buttery smooth motions with your drone. I've got the app fired up, let's jump right in. So to get into the DJI Fly App menus, you want to tap the three dots on the top right of the screen. Let's start with the safety tab. Now, a lot of these options in the safety tab don't directly relate to the camera itself. Some of these will help you get smoother footage. For example, the obstacle avoidance. When I'm out flying, most of the time I have this set to bypass. The reason I don't have it set to brake is because if I'm trying to get a smooth clip and the drone senses an obstacle, in brake mode it will come to a harsh stop. Now, that is definitely one of the safer options, but it means that clip might be ruined if you get this harsh stop in the clip. So I have it set to bypass, which means when the drone sees an obstacle, it will simply fly around the obstacle. And it means that clip will most likely be usable. I have disable sideways flight off. I want to be able to fly sideways. And I just have display radar map turned on. For flight protection, I have max altitude set to 120 meters, which is as high as you're allowed to fly. And I have max distance 10 meter limit, which is nice.
settings. So let's take a look at normal mode first. I actually do most of my cinematic moves in normal mode. I think it's a perfect compromise between semi and sport. Sport is normally too fast for cinematic moves, but if you're up high, I find semi sometimes is too slow. It doesn't convey motion. You need to actually move the drone quite fast when you're up high to get that cinematic motion in your video clip. So I use normal mode probably most of the time. Looking at normal mode, first up is pitch speed, which I have set to 50. Now I actually think to get that cinematic motion in your video clip, so I use normal mode probably most of the time. Looking at normal mode, first up is pitch speed, which I have set to 50. Now I actually think this is to get that cinematic motion in your video clip, so I use not too fast for cinematic moves. But if you're up high, my cinematic moves end when flying the field, where the horizon is constantly changing. And now we come to the advanced gimbal settings. So let's take a look at normal mode first. I actually do most of my cinematic moves in normal mode. I think it's a perfect compromise between semi and sport. Sport is normally too fast for cinematic moves, but if you're up high, I find semi sometimes is too slow. It doesn't convey motion. You actually move the drone quite fast when you're up high to get that cinematic motion in your video clip. So I use normal mode probably most of the time. Looking at normal mode, first up is pitch speed, which I have set to 50. Now I actually think this is the default value, and this is one of the only ones I haven't actually changed. So pitch speed is how quickly the gimbal will pitch up and down. So as mentioned, that's set to 50. Pitch smoothness. So this is when you let go of the scroll wheel on the back of the controller, how long it takes for that gimbal to come to a stop. So I have this set to 20, just to get that buffering motion. For yaw rotation speed, which is the left-right rotation of the drone, I have this set to 60. And for yaw smoothness, again, I have this set to 20. So if I let go of the stick by accident, if I just take my thumb off it while doing a cinematic move, the drone will actually come to a smooth stop and potentially save our clip. Then taking a look at sport mode. Now, the primary use I personally use sport mode for is just getting into position quick. I rarely use it for cinematic moves. I just want to get the drone in the air, flick it into sport mode, get it over to my subject or my point of entry, and then put it into a different flight mode for getting videos. So for pitch speed, I would set to 50 so that I can move the gimbal up and down really quickly. For pitch smoothness, I would set to 10 because why wouldn't you want a little bit of buffer? Again, it just saves you if you accidentally let go of the stick. You'll get a little bit of buffering in the movement. For yaw rotation speed, I would set to 150 so I can turn the drone really quickly to turn it to look at my point of interest fast. And again, for yaw smoothness, I would set to 20 just so I can have a slow, subtle move. The gimbal will still come to a slow stop, but again, I find if I'm rotating, come to a angle of sand. If I put it into stick mode 3, you'll see the same movement, but the left stick actually makes the drone fly forward. So I personally use stick mode 2, but